Imminence is one of the new weapons introduced with the Salvation's Edge raid, and it is the first lightweight strand SMG, which for me was a very exciting prospect. As a huge fan of lightweight SMGs, I was very excited to get my hands on this weapon. And I did get one relatively early on as a basic drop from the raid that I played around with a little bit. And something about it just felt ever so slightly off. It was what I thought was a good role in Slice and Chaos Reshaped. Chaos Reshaped, of course, one of the new raid perks that gives a stacking bonus similar to Frenzy, but 20 or 35% depending on how long it's been active. It just didn't feel like it was hitting right. So I chalked it up to having a basic roll of the weapon. This isn't the one. This isn't the one I'm going to be using. This isn't the weapon I'm going to keep forever. I'm going to be able to craft it, and I'm going to be able to make the exact one that I want. And by golly, I did. And my opinion has not changed. I'm just going to be upfront with you guys here. Strictly speaking, from a PvE perspective, I understand that some people really like this weapon in PvP. I've seen a few people using it during Iron Banner. Kudos to you if you enjoy it that way. In PvE, I have no other way to explain this weapon other than calling it sloppy. It is a very easy weapon to build. It has all the usual suspects when it comes to barrel perks and magazine perks. I would not recommend anybody use this weapon without arrowhead break. At the base 93 recoil direction, this weapon has a habit of pulling high and away very quickly from your target, and bringing that to 100 does stabilize it. It makes it much more vertical, does what 100 did before we had deterministic recoil, and makes that a much nicer line. But the weapon has a habit, even at 100 recoil direction, of swinging left and right ever so gradually. So when you're shooting something like a Vex Harpy in its crit spot, you'll get crits initially, and then you'll see it swing slightly left, and then swing slightly right. It's still up and down, and at 100 recoil, it is much more manageable. But it is a frustrating weapon to use. I was so convinced I was doing something wrong with this gun. In this footage, you're going to see I swap between two different rolls. I have the roll I crafted, which has arrowhead break. It also has accurized rounds, demolitionist, and firefly. I ran with accurized rounds, trying to get a little bit more stickiness downrange, which unfortunately didn't seem to do a lot to help the weapon, at least not in the ways that I was expecting it to. Demolitionist is a great perk that's going to give your grenade energy back, and was what I was kind of leaning towards using. I have also played around with perpetual motion, and unfortunately that has not addressed my concerns either. And Firefly was my attempt at countering some of the usability problems I was having with it. Originally, I had crafted this weapon with Chaos Reshaped, as I feel it is a very powerful damage perk. Anybody who has watched my Nullify video will know that I love Chaos Reshaped, and it is a hugely effective damage perk. But for whatever reason on Imminence, it just didn't feel right. This is just a gun that does not feel right to me. I didn't feel like I was getting the damage I should have been, even though the numbers were right. It's that little bit of sway that just took away from it for me. It took away from that feeling that the weapon was doing the job I wanted it to do, which was burst down these red bars, the occasional orange bar, relatively quickly, get to the next target, mow through them as well. That did not happen. I swapped to Firefly to give the weapon a little bit more ad clear potential, as well as a faster reload. Unfortunately, that same issue becomes all the more magnified when you are relying on precision hits to activate the perk you are trying to utilize. And so, more often than not, I wasn't activating Firefly because the weapon was getting away from me and I wasn't getting those precision kills that I was expecting. I was still getting the slower reload, which is also where Demolitionist came in so I could throw my grenade and reload the weapon. It just didn't work. And I was so confused. And so I swapped to another role, an adept I had gotten this week from doing the Master Challenge. This particular role has dynamic sway reduction and kill clip. Granted, this one is still at a 93 recoil direction. And if you watch the footage, you'll see that this weapon has a habit of dancing around quite a bit. It felt strangely better. I chalk it up to dynamic sway reduction, but in all honesty, I don't feel like even dynamic sway is doing the job I'm expecting it to do. The weapon continues to feel sloppy, and that's all the more apparent when I swap to my submission. In most of this footage, you're going to see me swapping between these three, and when I get to submission, it feels comparatively like a laser. It is on target consistently, it is getting the kills, it is mowing through ads, which kind of comes back to some of my other issues with the weapon, even if we ignore the feeling of the gun. Barrel and mags, great options, work great for an SMG. When you look at the third column, it's where you start to see why this weapon might have more of a PvP focus than a PvE. You do have fragile focus, perpetual motion, pugilist, dynamic sway reduction, enlightened action, slice, and demolitionist. A lot of those perks, almost all of those perks universally are great in PvP. When you get to the fourth column, you have strategist, you have Firefly. Hugely disappointing that Firefly is in the fourth column because it is in the same column as Chaos Reshaped, which means you cannot replicate the role of Nullify, which may have overcome some of the deficiencies I had with the weapon. If I could roll both of those perks together, I might be more willing to overlook some of those feel issues I have with the gun. But I digress. Desperate Measures, Target Lock, Chaos Reshaped, Kill Clip, and Hatchling. A lot of these damage perks are good for PvE, but when you combine them with that third column, you see a lot of PvP potential. Firefly gives you some group killing potential and faster reload. Target Lock is not the perk you want for PvP, really, or PvE at this point on SMGs. It takes so long to proc. Chaos Reshaped is a better choice for that. And I have heard a lot of people really enjoying Chaos Reshaped in PvP. If you can manage to proc it, that 20% damage buff that you get up to the 35% damage buff that you get is incredible. You have Kill Clip, which is one of the easiest damage buffs in the game to proc. You have Hatchling, which probably a little more PvE leaning these days, but still an option. Strategist is also there if you rely on your class ability. This feels like a PvP gun, and maybe that's why I don't like it for PvE. Maybe that is the reason, but I do not like this gun. I'm just gonna be straight up with you, plain and simple. There is almost nothing about the Imminence that I enjoy other than the fact that your character's arm comes out at a weird angle because it is a longer SMG. I think that's kind of neat. I don't really care for the sight on the weapon. It's not a great experience overall. I don't really like aiming down sights with it. I don't like shooting it. Again, having to call a weapon sloppy is kind of crazy to me. You can try it. You can get your crafted roll. You can make the perfect one and say, Nightmare, you know what? You're crazy, man. I love this gun, and I hope that's what happens for you. I do not. I want you guys to go out and get this gun, and I would love to find out that it's something I did wrong, that I didn't craft something properly, whatever the case may be. I would love to be wrong about how I feel about this weapon. But as far as PvE is concerned, it just doesn't scratch the itch. It doesn't fulfill the needs that I have. And it's hard for me to really recommend it to anybody. I'm not going to recommend a gun I don't love to anybody unless I have a good reason of like, hey, I don't love it because I don't play this certain way. This gun I don't love because of everything about it. Go out and give it a try if you want, but I'm not telling you to run Salvation's Edge and focus this thing until you get it. It's a rare example where a gun and I just do not click on any level. If you guys disagree, go ahead and let me know. Wouldn't be the first time. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. I tried to keep this one relatively short. I didn't really have a lot to add. It's a pretty basic build on this weapon, and it was really just the unique circumstance of I've never really done one of these videos with a weapon that I objectively hate. So it was a unique one for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it somehow, and if you didn't, maybe you'll like the next one better. And for everybody else, I'll see you on the next video. I do plan, real quick, I'm so sorry. I do plan on trying to get reviews up this week for the 2 new craftable weapons coming with the weekly reset, the pulse rifle and the rocket sidearm. I'm going to try and get reviews up for those relatively quickly. I'm stockpiling my engrams. I hope to get those frames quickly and crafted, and ideally I'll have videos up Tuesday and Wednesday for those. We'll see what happens. Hopefully that all works out, and then I may still have a video on Sunday, or I may take Sunday off because I pumped out all those videos. You'll know when I know. Thanks so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.